Hello, everyone. My name is Eduardo Galak. I'm a researcher from Argentina. I work at the CONICET, the National Council of Research in Argentina. And now I want to present to you my, my work that is called From the Ring to Cultural Diplomacy, Political Uses of Luis Angel Firpo's Sporting Image in Argentina-US Relations, from Perón, 1954, to Nixon, to Richard Nixon, 1958. First of all, I want to introduce this research into a bigger topic that is my last two presentation at NASH 2024. I present a first paper about what I call the defeated hero, the images of Luis Angel Firpo, to thinking how it was built an idea of what is an Argentinian, what is a Latino, in some papers, in some press media, newsreels, and also press media in the United States and in Argentina about the famous fight of Luis Angel Firpo in 1923 with Jack Dempsey. Then last year, I present Y en un dulce cuerpo a cuerpo and In a sweet body to body, that is part of a tango about boxing, and I present some tango music, Argentinian tango music that takes boxing as an important part, and some tango about that Dempsey Firpo fight in 1923 that I presented. But in these works, I present three main ideas: the representation in sport, national and racial identity, some artistic implication. I work with some paintings, I work with some films, I work with music and tango that I already explained. And in those two papers, I spoke about the political uses of the press, mainly radio and newsreels. And this is the main part that I want to share with you, because I will take this idea of the political uses of sporting, of in this case of boxing, to build an idea of Argentina in the United States and about the United States in Argentina. Some thought that I want to take from past presentation. The idea of this boxing match, you have on the left two images of Luis Angel Firpo, an Argentinian. It is shown as tough, as someone that could be a barbarian. The idea was to build someone who was very close to animals. That is why it was called by the US press as the wild bull of the Pampas, a name that first he hates, but then he takes as a trademark. And you have on the right the image of Jack Dempsey, the United States boxer, that was presented like a family-friendly guy, always laughing. And there's some scholars like David Lafort that it called that this fight was the opposite of two races of the civilization against barbarism. It was the first fight of a Latin American fighting in the United States against a United States boxer for the heavyweight title. Some ideas that I have already spoke in past presentation. All the iconic, all the artistic representation. There is a famous painting of Bellows that you can see on the left. There is in the middle Jack Dempsey like trying to catch himself, because on the fight the most famous thing is that Firpo lose the fight, but in the first round, at the end of the second round, Firpo punches Dempsey outside of the ring, and there is until today a discussion if he has to be banished from disqualified from that fighting. In the second round, Dempsey knocked out Firpo and was the champion. But the most interesting thing that maybe Firpo is well known, is famous, is a national hero for being a defeated, for being the loser and not the winner guy. And like I already said, some tango music. It was very famous in the 1920s in Buenos Aires, the tango music, and this tango music playing songs about Firpo and his faults. And this is what I want to present from nowadays. First of all, something that I already explained in past presentation. It was the first time that from the United States to Argentina, that is thousands of kilometers, it was the first time that was broadcast live a sporting event. It was the first one in 1923. Here you can see some images about the repercussion. It was well known the fight, but also all the repercussion of the fights. You know, the radio broadcasting about the fight. It was a huge event in Argentina. But not only in those days the radio was important for the mass media, also the newsreels, also the images, the documentary films about the fight, previous that fight, you have here previous the fight. And the other thing that I worked is it was like 30 years later of that fight. Juan Domingo Perón, the president of Argentina between 1946 to 1955, invited Dempsey to Argentina and tried to make a rematch. They never could, but they came into the ring for what was called La Fiesta del Boxeo, the boxing party, to celebrate, first of all, the reunited fighters, but also something that it was important during those days. Argentina was struggling with the U.S. government about what happens when the Second World War was finished, and which side Perón takes on that struggle. And it was beginning some ideological issues between the Perón government and the United States government. So there is an idea that Perón invited one of the most famous sportsmen in the United States, as Dempsey, to Argentina to show that Argentina and United States were friends. That is important. The uses of sport as a diplomacy matter. So this is what I want to share with you today. These images of Perón were in 1954. 1 year and a half later of those images, Perón was kicked out from the government by the military. It was a coup d'etat that take Perón from the government, and it was a military government and a weak democracy government in Argentina in 1958. But then the United States decided to make what they call a goodwill tour of Latin America, mostly South America, and Richard Nixon, the former vice president of the United States during those years, traveled around all South America because all the government on those years in South America were really weak, really. It was for them a danger of what was happening in Cuba. Just 1 year later, the Cuban Revolution began. So they wanted to show some strength on the backyard, as they call that was Latin America. So Richard Nixon begin in 1958 a goodwill tour. You can see images on the left, him in Bogota, in Colombia, and on the left in Montevideo, drinking mate, a traditional drink in Uruguay. But this goodwill tour, it is well known because one thing that I will show, and it is not so well known by others. It is well known because when he was in Caracas, in Venezuela, the car of Richard Nixon was attacked, as you can see, because there's some protesting, the left protesting the government approach to the United States government. But I want to, I'm researching some story about Richard Nixon in Argentina, that he came in April and May to Argentina. You can see here with Arturo Frondizi, the president of those years, and he was invited to the to some political acts. You can see here with the vice president, the smiling of the vice president of Argentina. It is amazing, and how he bent, and Richard Nixon is there. I really like this photography. But they were all military. They wanted to have good relation with the United States. Here you can see Richard Nixon cooking an asado, a barbecue in Argentina. It was well known. But the most interesting thing that Richard Nixon knows a little things of Argentina. Only a few things he knew about Argentina. The most important thing that he said about Argentina was Luis Angel Firpo, because he saw him on the fight on 1923. There's two versions that he saw on the stadium. The other say no. But here you can see how Richard Nixon asked for Luis Angel Firpo to come to the U.S. Embassy in Buenos Aires and meet him because he wanted to know him. And of course, these images were also well known, well used, were reproduced on the media, because you can see a sporting hero as Luis Angel Firpo smiling with the vice president of the United States. It is important to say that Richard Nixon and Juan Domingo Perón are really different kind of political ideas. So finally, I want to say that Firpo, as diplomatic memory, Firpo functioned not only as a celebrated former boxer, but also as a shared visual memory between Argentina and the United States. He was used for both sides, if I can say both sides. A defeated as political capital. Paradoxically, it was not victory but defeat against them, say, that transformed Firpo into a durable and reusable symbol, again in Argentina and in the United States. The transnational circulation of images, documentary newsreels, enabled this memory to circulate across different audiences, political contexts, and diplomatic agendas. And the idea that sport as an international political language, we can see it really well until today. This case demonstrates how sport could operate as an informal language of diplomatic rapprochement in context of political tension that it was the 50s in Argentina with the United States. And next steps, I was preparing this paper and I found into the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum a documentary film that it is not well produced, with Richard Nixon commenting his travel to Argentina. So I'm analyzing what he says. Here you can say the image is not so good, but here you can see, Richard Nixon and Luis Angel Firpo in 1958. Thank you very much to all of you. I really appreciate your comments and thoughts. Thank you.